This episode is brought to you by our good friends at NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. I'm sure by now you've all gotten back into your Sunday routines, but they could be even better. With NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place, every game, every Sunday, and you can even watch up to 4 different games at once with multi-view, one of my favorite inventions of this decade. It's exactly what you need to catch all the action, make your Sundays more magical, and also YouTube TV is great. I got it this year. It's awesome. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Social Media Derby. We've got a great episode coming up for you today after the Man United Man City Community Shield tie, which was a bit of a humdinger, going to penalties in the end. And then we'll talk a little bit through some of the transfers. I guess there's not really too much to discuss, but we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll get on to the game week 1 preview. Obviously, we've got the Premier League starting up again this weekend. Feels like it's been almost no break after the after the football for the Euros, the Copa America, and then obviously the football at the Olympics. But we're going straight back into the Premier League season now as well. So we'll get into some previews for Man United and Arsenal's first games there. But before we get into anything else, I'll do my usual spiel, which is for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it if you can. Again, we've been seeing some great engagement recently, so please comment down below as well. Let us know what you think about predictions, previews, our reviews of the game, and so on. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any other podcasting platform, please follow and give us a 5-star review. It really helps us with the algorithms and getting us in front of more listeners. So let's get into it. First of all, Anthony, how are you doing? It's a nice shirt that you're wearing there, mate.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. Good old alarms playing tricks with us while we're on different time zones. But no, I'm doing okay. Up and awake, ready for the day. And yeah, I thought I'd do a bit of a throwback with the old Brazil. I know you've had some nice kits on recently, so I thought I'd chuck this one on in the mix. Proper R9
I saw that
vibes, isn't it?
Yeah, that one came out again recently, didn't it? And they actually did a Ronaldo R9 one as well. Is that the R9 one, or is that just the normal plain one without anyone on the front, on the back?
Yeah, this is the plain one without any name or number on the back. But yeah, they did do a reissue. So Nike have done it with a few different kits. I think they're doing it with the USA women's kit right now as well. But they're doing a few reissues. So this one was a bit too good to miss out on. But yeah, it's always hard, isn't it, with what do you call it, sneakers or whatever their app is, to try and get the drop whenever they release stuff, because you have to beat all the bots and the resellers. But I managed to get my hands on it in the end. But let's get into this. Let's get into this game analysis for United and City, mate.
Well, I mean, we will talk about kits again later on after all of this, though, because I know that Arsenal, Man United, Real Madrid, and a couple of other legendary Adidas teams put out their retro third kits. So we do need to talk about that one because they look pretty tasty. But as you said, let's get into the review, I guess, of the Man City Man United game. Overall, a pretty decent game in the end. Went all the way to penalties, with Man City winning it 7-6 on penalties after a 1-1 draw in the 90 minutes, with Man United obviously taking the lead and then Man City getting a late equaliser. But let's kind of run through some of the key events. So Man City, obviously, as you'd always expect, had more of the ball. I mean, that's kind of their thing, really. They dominated the ball. They had a pretty decent shot, I think, from O'Reilly, who hits the outside of the post. You guys get into the game again. A very good performance, I think, overall from Ahmad, and a really good move that kind of results in him getting a cross across the box with Mount really close to getting on the end of it. So ends up being pretty even, in my opinion, for the first half. Obviously, you've also got another good move from Rashford, who curls the ball past the post. And then you get into the second half where you made a lot of bloody changes. I will say that. I think you made 4 changes at 60 minutes. And you continue to create chances with that, with Fernandes scoring an unbelievable disallowed goal. He was off. I know in today's day and age it's a mile off, but he was off by a tiny amount, and that goal was unbelievable. Smashed it top bins from pretty far out as well. And then you've obviously got Rashford, I'm going to say missing a sitter. Really seems to like shin it or something, or ankle it or whatever else, and it goes around the post. And then you got McTominay doing McTominay things. Actually, no, this isn't actually a McTominay thing. I will say that. McTominay things are elsewhere, but he ends up missing a tap-in, which I think is a header, kind of goal mouth right in front of the goal. Should have converted that chance, but just wasn't able to. And then you get the first goal of the game, the first real chance, and that is Garnacho scoring to put you guys 1-0 up. I think that was somewhere in the 70th, 75th, between 70th and 80th minute. Oh, 82nd minute. Okay. So quite late on. It looks like you guys are going to go into, lift another trophy so quickly. And then somehow they get an equaliser. Oscar Bob, who looked very tasty during the game, puts in a nice cross. And I know we're going to get onto this in a little bit, but Pellistri allows Bernardo Silva to get above him, puts it in for the equaliser, and it goes straight to penalties. Penalties were decent. A couple of pretty bad misses, I'm going to be honest with you. So the Bernardo Silva miss was not great. Sancho miss, poor. Evans miss looked like, I saw a joke that basically said he looked like he was playing like a soccer aid or something, because he looked like he didn't, he looked like a YouTuber that didn't know how to kick a football. And then Akanji gets kind of his remontada after the whole Euros debacle, where he actually missed a penalty against us. That put Switzerland out, and he gets the winning penalty to get City over the line. So let's talk a little bit about it, and let's start really with how you think the overall game went. Do you think you deserve to lose? Do you think you deserve to win? How do you think the game went? And then let's get into some of the key moments.
Yeah, no, I think you ran through it pretty much spot on. I think the first 25, 30 minutes, I think City were doing what they normally do, like what you expect them to do. Like you said, they have the ball. But apart from that O'Reilly shot that I think hit the post, they didn't really create too many other chances, which for me is a huge encouragement, because we talked about it all season long, and I was having to defend United constantly, saying facing shots doesn't mean that your defense is poor, but obviously we agreed on this pod multiple times. It does mean though that your midfield is leaving your defense exposed so that people can have shots. Regardless of whether they're, gilt-edged chances or not, it's still not a great thing to constantly face shots on your goal, regardless of whether they're clear shots or whether your defenders are blocking them. So we didn't really face too many shots, so that was a huge encouragement, even when City had a lot of the ball. But I've got to be honest, after 30 minutes, I think we outplayed them for the rest of the game. And all the major chances, if you watch any highlight reels, come from us after that. Ahmad's, obviously, you talked about it. Ahmad's, he played really well on that right-hand side. I think the only criticism I'd have of him is he did the right thing that you would hope a winger would do, which is you get to the, basically a byline or, with the opportunity to shoot or cross, and you should have someone running in the middle to tap it in. And he does do the right thing technically, but I think that chance wasn't on, actually. And so some people are blaming Mount and saying, well, he should have been ahead a couple of steps forward. He should have been running onto it. But Ahmad was so far forward in front of the play when he did that little move with Casemiro that I actually think he should have just shot. And if he did shoot, I'm pretty sure he would have scored. He was that close to goal. And with a good angle on his left-hand side on his left foot to curl it to the bottom corner. So that's the only minor criticism I have of Ahmad. Apart from that, his performance was top. He looked really dangerous every time he got the ball. And it was good to have an outlet on the right-hand side, because pretty much all season long last season, unless we played Garnacho out there, Antony was useless. And anyone else that we put on that side was not effective. So it was good to see him impress on that side. I've seen a lot of stuff about Rashford. His finishing was poor, but I think his overall play was all right. He was working hard. He was tracking back. He was helping out his fullback. He was given effort, which I think a lot of people were hammering him for last season, and he looked like he wanted it. He just didn't have his shooting boots on, and it's unfortunate for him that two of the big chances in the game fell to him, and he didn't take them. But I'm not going to hammer him because I thought his overall performance was okay, and anyone that is going in on him, I think, has some unresolved agenda issues on Rashford, I think, because, he's doing what we asked him to do. And so, yeah, man, overall, we just had so many chances, and to lose on penalties is cruel, but really, we should have won the game in normal time. We should have never been in a position where going into the last few minutes, we were only 1-0 up, considering how many chances we had. We should have been at least 2-0 up. And then if, Silva does score that goal, which is a really disappointing goal to concede, you're just 2-1, kind of like the cup final, really, right? You probably should have been 2-0 up, and then they score a late goal to pull one back, but it doesn't impact the result, and you still get the win, because I think our performance deserved that. But it didn't happen, and unfortunately, Pelestri's not a right back. I mean, even right backs that we've played before in that position have made that error, so I can't even hammer him too much, right? We've seen a lot of goals where Wan-Bissaka's been beaten at the back post to a header or a cross, or same with Delo. So I don't want to hammer Pelistri too much, but it's obviously, he gets done by Bernardo for the equaliser, and then penalties. I was dreading it as soon as I saw Sancho step up. I was like, oh god, I know how this is going to go. I don't think he's got his remontada, as you said, quite yet. I think he's got to work a bit harder for that, and I don't think his penalty was terrible. I actually think the save was good. The only criticism of Sancho is probably he could have put it a bit higher, or a bit more in the corner, but he didn't. Bernardo's penalty was poor. Evans's penalty was shocking. I think Sancho's one was more of a good save goalie, because for Edison to get his fingertips on that and touch onto the post, he had to properly stretch. So no major complaints. But just a bit sad that you don't get the result I think your performance deserves, and I think we definitely deserve to get the win on Saturday.
And so, I mean, with that in mind, did you see a noticeable change in play? Does this performance fill you with excitement or dread, or what feeling does it, or emotion does it feel or fill you with, kind of going into the season? Was it despite the loss, is it still an overall positive, or how are you viewing it?
I would say so. It was. I'm not too downbeat about it, because we made jokes all season, and we made jokes last season, because in the end the Community Shield was the only thing Arsenal won, right? And then we started joking, calling it the English Super Cup and all that kind of stuff, and some fans will then start to kind of count it as a trophy or put some extra weight onto it. I think that's like the game is the game type thing, right? If we had won, maybe United fans would be doing the same. I'm sure City fans are probably not, because they win big boy trophies all the time, so they probably are like pretty level headed about this. But I'm not that bothered about not getting the win in this game on penalties. I think if we'd have lost on a scoreline like I predicted last week, I would have been a little bit more. I don't know. I'd probably be a little bit more mixed on my feelings, because I did expect us to lose the game. So really, I'm kind of like pleasantly surprised, both by the performance in terms of the quality, but also I feel like there were good patterns of play, man. I feel like a lot of the chances that we created came from good moves. They didn't look like individual bits of brilliance, which we've kind of relied on in years gone by, or counter attacks and stuff like that. I think that Rashford one where he curls it past the post, that's a beautiful move that goes through the whole of defence and passes through from side to side through like nearly all 11 players on the pitch. So, and I saw that numerous times throughout the game. So it was really encouraging, man. The few things that I wanted to see, because I don't expect us to turn into prime Barcelona in terms of style of play, but was that we look more defensively solid. and I think having two in midfield helped that. And then actually show some sort of patterns of play when it came to going forward and transitioning from defence to attack. And I think we did that. So I know Man City weren't at their full strength, so I'm not going to go, oh my God, and go, as crazy as I did after the cup final. But I feel like it was a really positive performance. So yeah, I'm naturally upbeat about the whole thing, and losing on penalties hasn't kind of destroyed that vibe. I still feel very positive about that going into Fulham on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I definitely think that
Greatness hurts. It's 10,000 hours of hard work, sweat, and setbacks. The aches, the stumbles, the falls. Tylenol provides pain relief for the champion in us all. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand of pain relief and fever reduction. This summer, when greatness hurts, Tylenol will be there with care to help you keep chasing it. That's Tylenol. That's care without limits. Visit Tylenol.com/greatness-hurts to learn more. Use as directed.
You looked a lot better. And I mean, we talk about predictions that we made beforehand. This was kind of what I was thinking again, right? Like, not that you are going to get jammy or anything, because I think in the cup final last year, it wasn't jammy either. You just, for some reason, turn up and play well against Man City. And I think it was very similar this time. And I think by the time the 90 minutes was up, I was thinking that I was going to be right again, because generally speaking, Man United don't really lose penalty shootouts.
We're decent at penalties. We're decent.
Yeah. So I was thinking that you'd probably be able to do that. And then looking at, obviously, Man City's team, they had a lot of youngsters in there. And it wasn't, as you say, it wasn't like their full strength 11. So I thought there was always a chance that they could mess up a few penalties here and there. Especially when they've got like their goalkeeper taking the bloody 5th penalty or whatever it was, and taking a very good penalty. I must admit, he is a very good penalty taker. But I think overall, I think you played really well, and I think there's a lot of positives to take from the game. I think, as you said, you created good chances. You did really all of the work you needed to do right up until the end, I think, for a lot of your chances. And that was the issue, right? Like just what you said about the Ahmad chance. He did pretty much everything right until the very end. With the Rashford kind of opportunity, all of the build-up play was really good, and then he just can't do it at the end in terms of putting it past the post with his left foot. And I think generally speaking, if you can just get a little bit luck, a little bit of luck at the end, or if you can just maybe zone in and switch on at certain times, I think you will end up scoring a lot more goals, and your offense will look a lot better than they did last year. And I think really that's got to be the thing that needs to improve, because I know people talk about your defense and facing all these shots here and there and everywhere else. But my biggest issue about Man United was always, last season at least, was always their attack. And how without Rashford, you just didn't really look all that menacing. And I know obviously with Højlund, he put in some good performances and scored some good goals, but you just didn't really look like your attack had any real rhythm to it, or it really had any logic to it. It was just kind of like amazing things here, there, and everywhere else, or just route one simple football. But I think this year your attack looks like it's going to be a lot more like logical. It's going to be a lot more kind of calculated in how you go forward. And I think players like Ahmad will definitely add to that. I think getting Mount into the team a lot more this season should add an attacking element. But it'll be interesting to see how Bruno plays alongside of him. And then obviously Rashford is going to continue to be Rashford. And I think, again, he's a fan favourite, so I'm assuming you're going to continue to play him even if he has a rough patch. But the likelihood is if he hits one kind of patch of form, that's a lot of goals scored, right? And it's a lot of good attacking play done. So I would imagine that at some point this season, he is going to, hit a little patch of form, and then is going to turn things around, and you're going to see Man United banging in quite a lot of goals. So overall, I mean, like, you didn't even see Xerxes, you didn't see a lot of like the new players. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but you've got Ligt and Mazraoui now as well. So there's a lot of promise there. And I think if your signings are decent and they add to and improve your team, then I think overall Man United should look a lot better this season than they did last season. So I think a lot of positives to take from it. It was interesting to see a couple of memes, funny memes of Ruud van Nistelrooy on the bench looking at Rashford wearing his number, missing sitters. And he's just got like a confused face on. But it'll be interesting to see. And I think that, yeah, Ten Hag looks like he's upbeat. He's kind of recovered a bit as well, which is good after what happened last season and all of the madness about possibly getting sacked and so on. So overall, it looks kind of like like a new Man United, almost as if last season didn't happen. So I think overall it should be pretty good for you. So yeah, we'll see if you can meet the predictions that we put for Man United as well. Whether they'll get into the top 4 or 5th or whatever that might be, but they could even do a little bit better than that depending on how well they play. So let's move on to transfers now. We've done a lot of coverage of transfers, obviously, over the last 2-3 months, or let's say 2 months. But we've actually got some confirms to talk about this time. Outside of that, not really much else to talk about. So we'll get into it then. We'll get straight into Man United first. It looked like it was waiting for Wan-Bissaka, really, for this move to get confirmed. But it does look like now that Wan-Bissaka to transfer to West Ham has now been confirmed for, I think, 15 million-ish. And with that, Man United have now signed old Matthijs de Ligt and Mazraoui from Bayern for a combined, I think it's like 50-ish million, right? Like 45 million euros for de Ligt, and I think 15 million euros for Mazraoui. So how are you feeling, then? Let's just put a bow on that, mate. Are you happy to get them through the door and get Wan-Bissaka out?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to get them through the door. And I don't feel upset or happy about Wan-Bissaka leaving. Like you said, I think we knew we had to do some deals. His contract was running out in a year's time. He didn't suit the style of play that I think Ten Hag and most progressive teams would want their right backs to play. So I think it was a necessary deal. But I think there'll definitely be times in the season where, a winger wraps up Dalot or Mazraoui and we go, oh, bloody hell, wish we had Wan-Bissaka to bring on so he could keep them quiet, because that's what he does. But now, wish him well at West Ham. I think it would be a great signing for them. And £15 million is not bad on both sides, I think. So I think in terms of the amortization of the deal, because we've had him for like 5 or 6 years or whatever, it ends up being a profit. Don't ask me how that works out when you buy someone for 50 and you sell them for 15. But anyway, on the books, that's a positive as well. So yeah, big up Wan-Bissaka for what he's played for United during the tough times, mate. So I give him my blessings as he goes on to West Ham. But de Ligt, Mazraoui, I'm happy to get them in. You saw our defence, which I think honestly Maguire and Evans did okay on Saturday, but they're limited. Evans is limited by age, Maguire limited by skill set. So getting de Ligt in, come in, play next to Martinez is going to help us massively. So yeah, I'm going to be positive about that deal until I see otherwise, because I know there's a lot of banter flying about and people saying, even Scholesy I saw on the overlap say, why we're buying Bayern's backup defenders, Eric Dyer's putting him out of the team and all that kind of stuff. And it makes headlines and it's hilarious. But yeah, when you look into the stats, he actually played alongside Dyer for, I think, 14 out of the 15 games that Dyer played for Bayern. So, Dyer didn't put him out. Unfortunately for us and the other Asian brothers, he put out Kim Min-jae and he put out Upamecano more than de Ligt. So, yeah, that's a funny one-liner, but it's not necessarily true. And I'm happy, because in terms of his injury record, people have also said, he's always injured. If you compare him with our centre-backs, he's been more available than all of them. So, which is another important thing, because we're always hit by injuries. So super happy with de Ligt. Mazraoui, I think we've talked about it to death on this pod. It's good to get a right back in who can also play left back, obviously, because of how made of glass Malacia and Luke Shaw are. And then that gives a good opportunity for Amas to come in as a backup and ease into the team. So happy with both deals. Think the business is good as well. 60 million euros, I think, and it can go up to like 65 or 67 or something. So I think the deal can come to is like 56 or something like that in total, which I think for those two players is really good business. So yeah, really, really happy. The only thing I think to say is, and to touch on what you talked about earlier, a bit about Xerxes, I've seen some Man U fans go absolutely mental about Xerxes not playing a minute in this Community Shield and start to like question the whole deal. Those people need to calm down, right? He hasn't played for Ten Hag before. So you can't come in and say, oh, yeah, he should be coming straight into the team. I'd been hopeful he was going to get 10, 15 minutes, but I'm not upset that he didn't play. He was at the Euros, but he didn't play a minute, right? He probably hasn't played football for 7 or 8 weeks. Never played for Ten Hag. You have to be patient with these signings. I don't expect the same of Ligt and Mazraoui because they've actually been playing in pre-season for Bayern, or Mazraoui has anyway. And Ligt has played for Ten Hag. So you see with some signings when they've been Ten Hag boys, they go straight into the lineup. So I expect them to go straight into the lineup. But I think people need to be patient if they don't. Because, we always see it. You saw it with Calafiori, right? I think he played 10 minutes in the Emirates Cup. You don't play all your signings straight away. So you don't need to start losing your mind and start saying, why have we even bought him, blah, blah, blah. I think we'll see the best of all 4 signings we've seen so far. I think are players that are going to be for the first team. Maybe Xerxes going to, rotate a bit with Højlund, but Højlund gets injured so much that I think you'll see a lot of Xerxes. So I'm happy, man. I'm happy with all that business, and hopefully we can get a midfielder in, and then I'll be, really comfortable with all of our business. But yeah, what do you think about the deals? I'm guessing you're just happy to have them wrapped up, so we don't have to talk about it anymore.
No, I mean, I think they're the kind of main things that have been happening in the transfer window. As I said before, it's been a somewhat kind of boring transfer window, really, for the Premier League this year, at least so far. And really, Man United have been leading the way in terms of velocity of rumours and probably names, really. So it's exciting. I think overall it's not terrible business. I think De Ligt and Mazraoui for, as you said, max of 57 or whatever million. It's not terrible, right? When you think about how much you spent previously on centre backs and how much the rest of the world and the rest of the teams across the world are paying for good young centre backs these days, I don't think it's crazy. And I've been seeing some fan talk about, it's the beginning of the end for De Ligt, and he's been at so many big teams now, and he's been underwhelming and all this, that, and the other. And they kind of talk about him as if Man United paying 45 million euros for him is some crazy deal. And I just want everyone to remember that, some of these, what we might consider to be failed wonder kids, right? The players that we think are going to be absolute stars. They're going to be Ballon d'Or winners and this, that, and the other. We forget that they can have remontadas as well. And the fact that De Ligt is still so young gives him a lot of opportunity to kind of come back and do something. And I think while I do agree if he flops at Man United, he's probably going to be relegated down 1 tier or 2 tiers to be more of kind of a good middle type defender, maybe for a Europa League team or one of the crappier Champions League teams. But I don't think he will be in that top echelon of centre-backs anymore. And I agree with that. But to say that you're going to pay 45 million euros for somebody who might be in that top tier, still might be in that top tier, I think is not crazy to pay. And I think we, as an Arsenal fan, I remember obviously buying Odegaard, who was, somewhat of a failed wonder kid at that time. He'd gone to Real Madrid. He was supposed to be the guy, and kind of a bit like Arda Güler now, right? He was supposed to be that absolute wonder kid that was going to turn Real Madrid on its side, right? And I think it didn't really work out for him. He ends up coming to Arsenal for a pretty big fee as well at the time. And he's now ended up becoming one of our best players. And I think people would have said a lot of things about him, about his injury record, about this, about that, about how he couldn't do it on the big stage. And he's managed to be really, really good for us. So, I'm not in the business of trying to stick up for Man United fans or for Man United business. But, I mean, the reach needs to... Let's reach for things when they're in arm's length, right? When they're buying Maguire for 80 million, or if they're buying Antony for 90 million, or whatever else it might be, go ahead, call those out. They're stupid. It's clear, even without them playing a single game, those are really risky for who they're buying. But let's not try and reach for a De Ligt for 45 million euros, which is what, 37 million pounds or whatever it is. It's not a lot of money. And I mean, business, in this day and age, it's not a lot of money. And I think there's a lot of upside to it, right? So, yeah, not too bad. As I said before, sad to see Wan-Bissaka go. I still think he could have done something for you. But I understand that he's going to be one of the players that goes out. He's the English guy. That's going to be easy for another English team to go and buy, thinking how they're going to slot him into the team. He's obviously a really good one-on-one defender, so that's going to work for a lot of teams that don't need someone who's going to play it out from the back or, dribble this, that, and the other all the time. So I think sad, but it makes sense as to why. So overall, not terrible. I still think you desperately need a centre mid. And with the Ugarte deal pretty much dead now, I don't know where you're going to get a centre mid from or who that centre mid might be, but I still think
that's coming back to life though.
That's
coming back to life though. I've been reading some rumours and all the big transfer ITKs are saying that they're still in communication, they're still negotiating. It's definitely not off. Blah 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 blah. So who knows? Let's see. I still think that's a possible deal. But I think it's the reason why it starts to cool is because obviously PSG are asking for too much money, and then we can't sell McTominay. But I think, to be honest, we were having the same conversations about Bayern with Ligt and Mazraoui. They wanted 50 million pounds or something, I think, for Ligt, and we managed to get them down to a reasonable deal once the Wan-Bissaka deal was done. So who knows? I still think the Ugarte one is probably the most likely, but
they bought João Neves now as well, right? Who's also kind of a DM, so it would make sense.
They've got Doué as well.
Shift. Yeah, Doué too, right? But it would make sense that they would want to shift somebody and probably not want to go for like 60 million, right? Like unless they really want to be tight about it, maybe they will. But overall, if they've got players to replace him, you wouldn't expect them to go like, "Oh, I want everything back."
I think they're going to drop their fee. Now that they've got Neves, now that they've got Doué, and they managed to get both of them for a reasonable. I think Neves went for like himself like 50 or 60 million euros for a very reasonable fee. So I think eventually they'll drop the price a little bit, and we'll meet in the middle somewhere. And then you'll probably see McTominay go out the door. But yeah, that's what it's looking like anyway.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I think if you can get Ugarte back in, that would be a decent deal. But if you are doing this one in, one out policy, then you're going to need to get rid of someone, right? Because you got rid of Wan-Bissaka, who's one person, and brought in two. So you're still at a -1 deficit. You need to get rid of somebody else.
But no, the worry is that if we don't get Ugarte, though, because then the other links have been Sander Berge at Sheffield United.
And they're trying to rip you for him as well.
Yeah. They're trying to ask for 35 million euros or something like that, which is a lot for a relegated team. And I think a lot of fans are not on board with that. And then also Youssef Fofana, who I wouldn't be totally against from Monaco. And I think that's at a similar fee. So let's see. I think midfield is the spot for our next signing if we make any more. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to Arsenal. I'm sure there will be more Man United I guess rumours to talk about next season next week, once these ones are all wrapped up. So let's talk about Arsenal then. It pains me to have to say this again, but we're still looking at Mikel Merino. That hasn't died yet. And Real Sociedad have had somewhat of a boon in the fact that Zubimendi told Liverpool to jog it on. So they might be a bit more desperate to sell Mikel Merino now and get a bit of money. So who knows? Yeah, who really bloody knows at this point? But it's looking like we are serious about Mikel Merino, which is shocking. So yeah, overall, I'm not very happy about that. I think I said it again, last week. I'm not going to keep on banging on that one, but yeah, it just doesn't make sense. I would like to see some other names in this rumoured ins list, but it's still him, Double M. Rumoured outs, Nketiah, it looks like the deal to Marseille has probably broken down at this point now. Probably over our unwillingness to kind of bend on the fee, which was exactly what I was hoping would not happen. But it now looks like he might be a target for Bournemouth, who have just obviously lost old Dom Solanke to Tottenham for a tidy fee. So we know they've got money, which is good. Hopefully we can try and rinse them for Nketiah and get, 30, 35 million, whatever we're asking for him out of them. And let's be honest, for them, there's not all that much on the market right now, unless they really want to look outside the Premier League, which would be interesting to do, but they don't have very long now to try and secure somebody. So it kind of makes sense for them to go after somebody like Nketiah. But again, I don't think they're going to have.
Whoa, that ball is out of here!
And coming right for us! I caught it. And I earned 3% back when I bought this glove online with my Bank of America customized cash rewards card.
Be your own hero. Earn 3% back in the category of your choice, including online shopping with the Bank of America customized cash rewards card. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/customized cash. What would you like the power to do?
I think they're going to have a few problems with the fee that we're asking for. So we'll see if Nketiah ends up still being an Arsenal player by the end of this transfer window. And then we've also got the last rumour is really Ramsdale going to Southampton, which I actually quite like. I quite like that as an overall move. I think that could be a good one for him. I think that's a good one for Southampton as well. They get a really good goalkeeper in him. And yeah, overall, I think that could be the right move. It'd be interesting to know what the fee might be and what that would look like. I'm imagining we're going to get ripped because I don't think Southampton have a whole lot of money, even if they are coming up into the Premier League. And from some of the fees that were being quoted earlier this transfer window for Ramsdale, I'm not optimistic about us getting any kind of crazy fee for him. I think it will still be in the single-figure millions or maybe just double figures, but I don't think it's going to be anything too wild. So, yeah, overall, I don't even really want to talk about these, especially the Mikel Merino one. I don't want to talk about that one. I just want Nketiah to get out, and I want, if Ramsdale can finally just leave, I think it would be the best for both of us. So, I wish I had more exciting things to talk about or more shocking things to talk about, but that's all I've got. And what's your take on the Arsenal rumoured ins and rumoured outs?
I think the Merino one is what you talked about just at the beginning. We were joking about. I think Sociedad are not sanctioning the move while the Zubimendi stuff was going on in the background, because I think that came a bit out of left field, and they weren't expecting that to happen as well. So I think they're okay to sell Merino to you, and I think you guys have pretty much agreed most things in terms of the deal, but they obviously had to slow things down while they were begging Zubimendi to stay. And now that's been successful, and Liverpool have gone running with the tail between their legs, I think they'll probably allow this deal to go through. So timing-wise, it's a bit annoying because he's not going to be in for your first game, I think. But
let's be honest, I don't think he was going to play anyway. So
no, I know, but just
in my mind, he wouldn't play anyway either. But yeah,
but it's less about playing. It's more about every fan wants their team to get all the players in before the start of the season, so they can train together, so that they can start to understand how the team plays, etc. So I agree. I don't think Merino would have started, but you want to have your players in as early as possible and before the Premier League season. But when you have this window that drags on through the start of the season, I think most teams are not going to have that luxury, right? I think you have to be really proactive to get deals sorted in time. Otherwise, I think most teams will get kind of some of their business done within the first 2 weeks of the season when the transfer window closes. But I would just be, like you said, I'm a bit worried you're just not linked to too many other strikers and stuff like that. And there are strikers out there on the market. Osimhen's still out there. The young lad that was going from Atleti to Chelsea, Omarodion or whatever his name is, he's still knocking about. There's a few strikers still knocking about. I know you went big for Sesko in the early part of the window. I think we did too. We both flopped because he stayed at Leipzig. But there's strikers out there. If you were serious about getting a new striker, you'd think you'd see some links out there, but I haven't really seen anything. So if I was an Arsenal fan, I think that would be the big worry, because Calafiori was like a nice to have. I think your defense was good enough to win last season, but it's kind of like the Thanos situation. You've got all the Infinity Stones, but the midfield and the strike up front was the area where I think was going to make that little bit of difference. And if you get Merino, I know you're not big on him, but he's decent cover in midfield, and I think he'll be able to do a job. But then, not too many links. I know there was the Sane link last week that we talked about, but that was very soft. no other real links to any wide forwards or strikers, and I think you probably should be if you're going to get anyone. But with Osimhen still knocking about, who knows, man? Napoli might get desperate in the back end of the window and do you a deal. And I'll tell you what, if you get Osimhen, that would be class. So
yeah.
So let's see on the outs though. The Nketiah one, it just feels a bit greedy, man. And I'm gonna say that without saying United are the same, because we've been doing the same with McTominay, where teams are offering 5 million short of the valuation, and it's still been a fair amount, I think. And I think our valuations are probably slightly over the top. And I think that's what happened with Marseille's bid. I think it was fair, and you probably should have just taken it. But now they've moved on to Elia Wahi from Lens, and they've bought him. So that's completely dead in the water now. So the only good news is you've got a few teams in the Prem that still need a striker, and Bournemouth are obviously one, and they could probably do the deal. But I still think it relies on you guys dropping your asking price a bit, because I don't think they're going to pay £30 million. I think they will pay 20 to 25 million, and I think that's fair. And I would do that deal with some sort of sell on, and just get him out the door and get the cash in. But I'm not a football finance guy, so it's a lot more complicated than that, I'm sure. But I just get him out of here. No disrespect to him or anything, but I just do the deal. I just feel like it's dragging on. And with Ramsdale, I feel like it's a good deal for him. I don't think it will be a sell though. I think you'll probably end up loaning him. But I think it would be a good move for him, and not the worst move for you, because if you loan him, if he plays a full season and does really well, you'll probably sell him to Southampton the next season for a good sum and get most of your money back, or someone else and get most of your money back. So all of these deals make sense. They're just not sexy deals, you know what I mean? They're kind of ones where people watching the pod might just skim over this bit.
Well, the Ramsdale one, especially, like, if he does well at Southampton, let's be honest, Southampton are going to get goals pumped past them. Like, even if they end up staying up, they're letting in a lot of goals, right? It doesn't matter how good their goalkeeper is. And a good example is like Fotheringham last season, pretty decent goalkeeper. I think if he's playing for a mid-table team, he would be considered to be a decent goalkeeper. And he got absolutely slapped over and over and over again. And no one talks about him. He's not getting bought by anyone. No one cares about him.
He went to West Ham.
Do a job. Oh, did he?
Yeah, he went to West Ham on a free transfer. Yeah, West Ham.
To replace what? Areola?
No, he's the backup to Areola. I think Fabianski's contract's gone down, and he's gone in as the backup to Areola.
But that's my point, is right. Like, I think he quality wise could probably be a mid-table first team, like first choice goalkeeper.
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
And my issue is with Ramsdale. He's going to go to Southampton and get just goals straight past him over and over again, likely. And then as a result, his stock is going to be really low, and everyone's going to say, why do I want that guy? He's just letting bloody 45 goals in 10 games or whatever else it might be. So, I'm a little bit worried about that, and I think that there should be some sort of like obligation to buy at the end of it or something like that, because you
might do that deal.
You're gonna test the goods, but you might ruin the goods at the same time. You know what I mean? So you've got to put something down. You got to give us a deposit for this car that you're renting, mate.
You know what it's going to be though. It is going to be that, but it's going to be with a stipulation like if Southampton stay up, which they won't.
Yes, which they clearly won't. Which is rubbish. What's the point of doing that?
But they won't do that deal, right? Because he'll probably be on big wages for them. It'll be a big fee, and if they go down, he'll probably want to leave anyway. So. There's reasons why they'll probably put those stipulations in. But I hear you. It's not a good look to get absolutely packed out, even if you play well. Because let's be honest, when you signed Ramsdale, he was coming off 2 seasons with clubs where they got relegated or were absolutely shy.
We might be in his third.
So,
imagine if he comes back into the Arsenal team. Now everyone's going to say he's been relegated 3 times. The banter never ends, man. Mikel Arteta's doing the pickpocket things, and now he's doing this. Like, mate, not everything's a joke. Be serious sometimes, man. No. Oh god. But anyway, those are the rumors for this month, this week's episode. Hopefully next week we'll have something better to talk about, and hopefully I won't have to say that Mikel Merino is confirmed coming to Arsenal. But who knows?
Why do you
Let's
hate
get
him so much?
mate, because he reminds me of Mikel Arteta when he was playing for Arsenal. I don't need this geezer. I need someone better than him. Get rid of him. Get him and his hairy arms out of here. I don't need this. But anyway, let's get
Fair
on
enough.
to
Can't argue with
let's get on to the game week 1 previews. We got Man United's first week against Fulham, which will be an interesting one. Hopefully, Emil Smith-Rowe will play that game, and that's at home at Old Trafford. And then you've got Arsenal playing Wolves without Pedro Neto, which is good for us, and that is also at home for us as well. So that's at the Emirates. So we'll start off with Man United. We'll start off with you, Ant. Man United Fulham, first game of the season. Obviously, Fulham missing some pretty key players now. Obviously, and João Palhinha missing, but they've made some pretty good signings. So they are going to look somewhat of a different outfit to last season, but got a good manager. And you guys obviously coming off a pretty good performance against City in the Community Shield. So how do you think this game's going to go, mate? Who do you think is going to be the better team? What do you think the score's going to be? Who do you think some of your star players are going to be? Do you think Ligt and Mazraoui will get in the team? Will be on the bench? Like, give me a full rundown of the game, mate.
Yeah, so this is the curtain raiser for the Premier League as well, by the way. This is on Friday night under the lights. I remember, I think a couple of seasons back, didn't you guys you were in the curtain raiser away at Brentford or something, and it was horrible. So I think we're lucky that, we've got a home fixture to kick off the season, because otherwise I think away at Fulham on Friday night to kick off the season would have been a bit dodge. I could have seen us flopping that a bit, but at home I feel confident. After that performance, I feel confident, and I feel like we're quite lucky with our fixtures for this initial game, because while I do think Fulham are good, and I agree with you, Marco Silva's a good coach and they play decent football, they've lost some key players, and the players they've brought in Smith-Rowe, they've brought in Ryan Sessegnon, and they've brought in someone called George Cuenca from Villarreal. Those are the only 3 signings they've made. Now, I think only the Smith-Rowe one goes directly into the team, because I think Anthony Robertson's a better left back than Sessegnon. I've never heard of Cuenca, so I would imagine Calvin Bassey's ahead of him, because I like Calvin Bassey, he's a good player. But they've lost Paulinho, they've lost Tosin, they've probably lost a few other players as well. So I actually think this is a good time to play Fulham. And even though they beat us at Old Trafford, I think last season, and it was a super infuriating game where Iwobi scored with a last-minute counter-attack, I think this game will go differently, and I feel like De Ligt will go in the team, and probably Mazraoui will go in there as well, to be honest. And either him or Delo will play left back. So we'll have a bit of a changed team in defence, but I'm hoping it doesn't impact it too much, and it's probably a nice welcome to the Premier League game for both of those guys, because when you think of Fulham, they don't really have marauding wingers. I know they could play Adama Traore, and it could get a bit physical. And I am bricks a bit imagining Mazraoui against Adama Traore.
Old baby oiled up, old Adama Traore. Yeah,
that's not a welcome you want to the Premier League. So they might need to switch it and put Delo on him wherever Traore goes. Put Delo on him just so Mazraoui can avoid him. No, just generally speaking, I think we'll have a lot of the ball. Hopefully, we'll be able to see some more patterns of play. And yeah, I'm really positive, man, because even though we got pumped by Liverpool 3-0 in the friendly, we were decent in that game too, and we created lots of chances. So it's 2 back-to-back games where we played generally quite well. Unfortunately, the result hasn't gone our way, so I'm hoping third time's a charm, and we're going to get the win against Fulham. And we kind of need to as well, because our next 2 fixtures afterwards are pretty difficult. We've got Brighton away and then Liverpool at home in game week 2 and game week 3. So we really need to get 3 points on the board with this. So I'm hopeful. I saw a lot of positive signs. The only thing I will say is Ten Hag's got some big calls. Garnacho obviously came off the bench and looked really good, scored his goal. We looked really dangerous. Ahmad started and looked very dangerous. What do you do? Because you've got 2 genuine alternatives to Rashford now. Or you could put Rashford up top. And I think that's probably what he might do, I think Ten Hag might. His might fall out and he might bottle it and put Rashford up top and Ahmad right and Garnacho left, because it looks like Xerxes being eased into things. Apparently he played a game behind closed doors earlier this week after the Community Shield, so that was the reason why he didn't feature apparently. So who knows? There's a chance, I guess, he could start as well, but I think probably conventional wisdom would say he's probably going to play Rashford up top, Garnacho on the left and Ahmad on the right. And the only slight deviation could be, unfortunately for Ahmad, he could be dropped, and then you could see some sort of Bruno false nine situation going on with Rashford on the left and Garnacho on the right. But I hope it's the former. I hope he's bold. I hope he rewards Ahmad for his good performances. And I think, to be honest, if we go with that team, well, even if we don't, I think we're going to get the win. So I'm going to go for Man United to win 3-1 against Fulham. But I think it will be a good, fun game. I think Fulham will have, a few chances too, but I'm hopeful it's not going to be, 15, 20 shots on goal. And I hope we're able to stay tight, and I hope we see a continuation of the two in midfield. So we saw it with Casemiro and Kobe sitting a bit deeper in that Community Shield game and not really bombing forward. And I hope we see the same thing. And I hope that's a pattern we see going forward. But yeah, I'm going to go Man U 3-1.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
Which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. USAA. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Interesting. I think I'm probably going to go for 2-1 Man United win. I think it will be difficult because Fulham, they play with a lot of energy. And I think one of the things that they can really do is they can press high and suffocate you sometimes and really catch you not paying attention, essentially, and they can kind of rush you. They kind of play like a siege mentality, kind of blitz type of thing, where they just come at you really quickly, physically knocking you over, doing this, that, and the other. And I think it can be a really rough night against them. And I'm speaking from what they did to us last season. Obviously, as you said, defensively, they're a kind of different outfit now to what they were last season. Obviously losing João Palhinha is a major loss to their defense. And then obviously tossing as well, one of the 1,000 Chelsea signings that have been made this transfer window. I think they could suffer a little bit defensively, but I still think they've got a lot of that kind of tricky pace and a really good work rate from that team. And I think their manager really gets them doing the simple things well, and everyone's really working as a team. So I think they can be a really tough match. So I'm going to go for 2-1 Man United win. I think it's going to be a hard-fought victory, but I think you will sneak it and you will manage to get your 3 points for the first match of the new season. But yeah, let's move on to Arsenal versus Wolves then. As I kind of mentioned before, no Pedro Neto for Wolves now, but they're still a pretty good team, right? They're still, man for man, a good team. They've got good players. Sometimes can't put things together. Their tactics sometimes think a bit, and they can default to kind of a defensive type of mode, which isn't really all that interesting to watch, particularly with some of the real ballers they've got on the ball. And obviously I massively jinxed old Cunha last season, and then he just started slapping goals in for fun. So knowing my luck, he will go and really make me eat it and score against us in this game. But I think overall Arsenal, you'll see a very similar lineup to a lot of what you saw last season. As I've said before, we haven't really bought that many people, so I don't expect us to see, like crazy changes to the lineup. I think it's going to be a very similar defense that you might have seen last season. I think you're obviously going to see Gabriel and Saliba continuing with White on the right-hand side. I'm not really sure about that left-back position. I think, I've seen some of the friendlies that we've played. I think Zinchenko started and kind of got taken off at half-time against Bayer Leverkusen. I think for Lyon or against Lyon, we also started Zinchenko and he got taken off in the 64th minute. So I would imagine he's probably going to start again, which always worries me. And then it looks like we'll start Rice, Partey, Odegaard, and possibly Havertz, depending on whether Jesus is fit in the kind of midfield positions. And then I'm thinking we'll probably start with Martinelli and Saka on the left and right wing. And then, as I said, with the striker, it will either be Jesus or Havertz, essentially. There's an outside chance that Trossard might also start instead of Martinelli as well, but I think Martinelli will probably end up getting the nod. He was decent against Lyon, got taken off in the 78th minute. I think he will see more favour at the beginning of the season. I think, Arteta will continue to give him a chance after what he did the season before last. So it should be a good Arsenal team. I don't think Calafiori will start. I think he will be on the bench. And I think we'll kind of ease him into it. But I think outside of that, we should have enough to get through Wolves. So I'm going to say we're going to win. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win. I think we're going to do the same that we did to Lyon. I think we're going to win 2-0. I don't necessarily think it'll be Saliba and Gabriel to be the ones that score, but but I wouldn't mind if they did, because I've defo got Gabriel in my fantasy Premier League team. So, but yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Arsenal win. What about you, Ant?
Yeah, so I think it'll be a bit easier for you guys actually, because I'm looking at some of the transfers Wolves have done, and they haven't really done anything, in the transfer window. They've bought a few players, but they look like young players. So they've obviously brought Tommy Doyle back from Man City on a permanent. I think he'll probably play, because I think he did quite well for them last season. So he's a good up and coming midfielder. But then they bought just a couple of young Brazilian, Portuguese guys like they always do, and Jorgen Strand Larsen from Celta Vigo, Norwegian international. So they haven't really done anything. And considering they lost not only Pedro Neto, but also Max Kilman in defence as well, he's gone to West Ham, I worry for Wolves, I probably should have considered them a bit more when we were doing our predictions last week for relegation stuff, because unless they go out there and get a few players now, I worry about their defence, and I worry about that attack without Pedro Neto. Although, I will say, in terms of talent, he might be number one out of their front line. But in terms of actual performance last season and output, he was probably the bottom. Because I do think, like you said, Matheus Cunha had some mad spree where he was just banging in goals everywhere. And his general overall performance was really good before that anyway. So the goals was all he was missing. And Hwang Hee-chan obviously was scoring goals as well. So I don't think Neto will be maybe as big a miss as Kilman. I think Kilman's the big one. I think they're going to struggle in defence. And that was kind of what kind of kept them in the league a bit last season, was their defence was quite hard. But I think you guys are going to be able to penetrate it. And I think you'll win quite comfortably in the end. So I'm going to go for Arsenal win 3-0. And I think Wolves, again, like Fulham, a decent first team to have in terms of the fixtures at home on Saturday. And I think the Emirates will be bumping, and you'll be singing your little song, and Arteta will be jumping up and down like a madman, and I think you'll win 3-0. So I think it'll be more comfortable than maybe you're predicting, just because I think this Wolves is a bit different to last year's Wolves. If it was last year's Wolves, I hear what you're saying. I think it would be a struggle, and it could even be like a 1-0, 2-1 last minute type situation. But this current Wolves, I don't think are built like that. So I think you're going to win 3-0. We should touch on quickly, Johnson, as well, before we wrap up, our prediction table, our preview score table, or whatever we're going to be doing every week, because I think we should include the Community Shield predictions in there, because it is, it's the first fixture of the season. You went 1-1, Man U win. I went 2. Did I go 2-0 or 2-1? I think I went 2-1, right? 2-1 City. So I get 1 point for the result being right, but no points for the score. And yours is weird because you got the score right, but not the result right. Which
I'm getting a point. Don't even try it.
No, you should. To be honest, you should get 2 points for that, because you got the score right, but the result wrong, and the result only gets 1 point, and the score line gets 3 points. So you should get 2 points for that, I think. I don't think we'll ever have that situation happen again until the cup games. But yeah, I think I'm going to be kinder. I think we should give you 2 points. So all right, you're currently in the lead. You've got 2 points, and I've got 1 point. You might see some sort of little table appear on the YouTube video of this clip, and we'll see after this week's results. Hopefully, I'll get back in the lead. But yeah, I'm going to go 3-0 Arsenal.
Okay. All right, so I've gone for 2-0 and you've gone for 3-0. So at least we're both agreed on the fact that Arsenal should keep a clean sheet and beat Wolves. It will be interesting to see with old Gary O'Neill, though, because he's still a good coach. And I think, as you said, they have lost some pretty key people, but they've still kept some pretty key people as well. I can't remember the very short Portuguese player that they had at the end of the season that was really cooking. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Long hair, looked pretty good for them. They've got him. They've got Nunes, Cunha, still around, and then they've obviously got Hwang Hee-chan as well. So they've still got some pretty good players, but as you said, their defence is going to be a bit weaker this season without Kilman. And we've got to give a shout out to West Ham, by the way. What a transfer window they are having, mate. What's it, Crescencio,
Signing
Somerville?
everyone.
Yeah, they're literally signing everyone. Kilman, Somerville, Fulkrug, Wan-Bissaka. You just said that they've got Fotheringham as their backup goalkeeper now as well. They are doing some madness out here. Todibo, my God. West Ham might cook.
They get more as well.
They might cook, you know. They might get Europa or Conference next season, you know. It's going to be a weird one. But I don't know where they're getting all this money from. But anyway, let's end up there. Let's wrap up there, Ant. Thank you very much for this week. Hopefully next week will be a little bit more exciting, both on the transfer front and also on the results side as well. I know obviously a penalty shootout is always pretty exciting, but that game in general probably wasn't the most exciting. So let's hope next week is a bit more exciting. But thank you, Ant, for joining, and we'll catch everyone next week.
Cheers, everyone. Take care. Thanks, Jonts.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.